Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide on ET now. Thank you so much for staying with us. Both of our guests are still with us. Karthik and Arvind are standing by, helping us make smarter decisions when it comes to buying property. Now, remember last week we talked about Ghaziabad as a possible destination for affordable housing in the NCR belt. This week we're going to focus on Faridabad. Take a look. 2 decades ago, Faridabad was just an industrial hub, famous for hosting an annual crafts fair. But all that changed when improved infrastructure and faster connectivity brought it closer to the rest of the NCR. Well, the 6-lane elevated Badrapur flyover and the Delhi Metro's upcoming 14-kilometer link has cut down travelling time between Faridabad and Delhi. According to Magic Bricks, some of the key investment locations in Faridabad are Sarja Kund, Neharpur, Palwal and Green Valley. Sarja Kund has witnessed a 43% rise in residential prices over the last 2 years, and homes are currently priced at an average of 6,950 rupees a square foot. Neharpur, on the other hand, has seen an increase of 49% in 2 years and is currently being priced at 3,625. Palwal, on the other hand, prices of homes in Palwal are currently priced at 2,025 rupees a square foot on an average. That's an increase of 40% over 2 years. And finally, Green Valley, an upscale integrated township, has seen a price rise of 27% and is currently being priced at an average of 5,825. All right, so that was Faridabad. Arvind, I'm going to bring you in here. It's not as cheap as Ghaziabad. There isn't as much of a difference between a Faridabad and a Noida or some portions of Gurgaon. Why is Faridabad in focus right now, and what sort of prospects do you think it has in the future?
You know, if you speak of Faridabad, you got to look at about last 20-25 years, the way Faridabad has changed and evolved over a period of time. So from very much a semi-urban kind of a setup, it has evolved into a very highly urbanized setup now. If you look at Faridabad, it's now connected by 2 or 3 roads with Delhi. And when access increases, when people live there in order to work somewhere else, prices will naturally go up. So Faridabad has certainly changed its character. It's metamorphosed from an industrial kind of an organism into a very high-class residential and commercial destination.
Karthik, if we look at the price rise, it's up to almost 50% over the last 2 years in Faridabad alone. You're in Delhi, you track that market very closely. For someone who's looking to own a home in the NCR region, does Faridabad make sense?
Well, while I agree with Arvind's view that, Faridabad has transformed itself over the last 2+ decades, it hasn't really delivered upon its promise over the last 5 or 6 years. There have been a lot of project delays. Some infrastructure development that had been promised hasn't really materialized the way one expected it to. And it's turned out to be somewhat of an unglamorous cousin to what Gurgaon is, which is where there's a lot more white-collar IT and services kind of industry jobs being created. The density of office space is much higher over there. So prices have gone up, but they're probably higher than what they ought to be relative to certain pockets and micro-markets within Gurgaon or areas south of Gurgaon that Arvind was just referring to a moment ago. And we'd prefer those areas rather than just plonking down money at about 7,000 or 8,000 rupees per square foot in Faridabad, which frankly seems very expensive given the lack of infrastructure and white-collar job creation in that particular market.
All right, so Karthik doesn't think it's the best market to focus on. What's your advice? And Karthik was giving us advice for end users, for people who are going to live in the homes they buy. But let's talk to investors now. Do you also think it doesn't make sense if I'm an investor in the NCR?
I think it's definitely not a market which is comparable to certain other more happening or more vibrant markets of the NCR. However, it still is a market which has got a potential to deliver in the future. So from the point of view of an investor, I would say if you have a long-term horizon and if you are willing to wait next 4, 5, 6 years maybe, then you can take a call on the Neharpur area. The challenge would be that the pricing has become almost stable there. It's not going up anymore. So if you are still wanting to take a gamble, you can very well go there and do it.
All right, so this is interesting. Our guests agreeing and also disagreeing a little bit on the whole contest of Faridabad. But what we have arrived at is that if you live and work in the neighborhood and this is where you want to be, then it might make sense for you. Of course, that's something you have to think about very carefully. But in the meantime, we've put together a list of projects that are under construction in Faridabad right now that you can take a look at. If you're looking to invest in a home in Faridabad, here are some options. BBTP's Park Floor, Platinum Heights from KLJ Developers, Ansal's Crown Heights, Puri Constructions, Pranayam, SRS Royal Hills 2, The Forest Spa by Omax, Alta Casa by Ostrom Homes, Ibiza Town by Krish, Sky Bungalows by Rise Projects, Maximum Heights Infrastructure Aravali 1, and Simeon by Meenal Housing. Alright, time for us to take a few more questions. Sachin has written in, he wants to invest in a 2 or a 3 bedroom apartment near the outer ring road in Bangalore with a budget of 40 to 50 lakh rupees. Please give him options of neighbourhoods. Karthik, 40 to 50 lakh rupees in Bangalore, that's still doable, isn't it?
I think it's a little tight, Faye, on the outer ring road. There are a few developments that are out there. There's one called Goyal Orchid Lakeview, as I read from my notes. That's retailing at about 55 lakhs right now. There's another one by Amigo Shelters, Sri Sai. That's at about 50 lakhs, but not a lot of these are going to get delivered within the next 12 months. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of that many branded developers who are developing properties over here that we would think of right now. But some of these local builders have good reputations as well, and he might want to consider these.
All right. But that's interesting. If your budget's a little low, looking at something that's under construction might make sense. Do you have anything to add for Sachin?
Yeah, it does. And I quite agree with what Karthik was saying. You know, the budget could be a bit of constraint here. I would make an assumption. A lot of people, when they speak of outer ring road...
it circles the entire city, doesn't it?
Outer ring road is a very huge stretch, 30 to 32 kilometers. I think the viewer is practically speaking about a stretch between Marthahalli to Sarjapur Road. That's where most people, want to be because it's closer to the electronic city, IT corridor and all. He was right in saying that the budget could be a constant, and there are not too many highly branded developers who are there, but still there are other reliable ones. In fact, I had a few names that I could suggest. There is something called Cosmos by Saroj, which is probably just fitting in the budget, but it's going to be delivered only next year. There is something called Srivatsa Constructions Mayfair Anthem. May again fit in. Evergreens is something which is about 46, 47 lakhs and is now ready to move in. So there are 3 or 4 projects which you definitely can look at apart from Sagar Nivas and Wars Parkwood. But these are again probably going to be just on the outer limit of the budget.
One more question. Bhaskar has written in. He wants to invest in a 2-bedroom apartment in Noida Extension with a budget of 25 lakh rupees. Karthik, I'm making this more and more difficult for you. 25 lakh rupees Noida Extension, is that possible?
Well, that's again a little tight, unfortunately, Faye. I think 25 lakhs is going to be a little difficult, but if the viewer is able to stretch himself to about 30 lakhs, then Eco Village 3 is available, as well as O2 Amrapali is also available within that price range in Noida Extension. But like you said in the preface of the question, I think you have made it harder for me, but if the gentleman can stretch his budget a little bit, hopefully he'll be able to make it easy for himself.
Arvind, do you have anything to offer him?
I pretty much agree, and it's 25 lakhs is a little tough for Noida Extension. You can probably look at a few projects like Elegant Splendor, Amrapali, O2, like you said, but they're all 25 plus. You got to be closer to 30 lakhs. If you're very strict within 25, then probably you can analyze Gaur Smart Home, Gaur City 2, and Ajnara Le Garden, but they're probably just at the outer limit of your budget.
All right, I want to thank both of our guests for spending time with us this week. Karthik and Arvind, it's been a pleasure to have you in the studio. When we come back from this break, we'll sit down with Nitesh Estates and we'll find out what the company has in the pipeline for next year. Don't go anywhere.